Roller coasters and horror stories have a lot in common. They both rely on building suspense before giving the audience their thrills, building up to a terrifying reveal in the case of a horror movie, or a vertigo-inducing drop in the case of a roller coaster. Although for me a good drop or launch on a coaster is much more thrilling than a cheap jump scare in a horror movie. However, there are many coasters around the world that use a horror theme, which can make the ride more exciting by creating a haunting atmosphere. There are many levels to horror-themed roller coasters. Some of them make use of horror only in name, but others completely immerse the riders in the world of horror. Let's take a look at some of the best horror-themed coasters around the world. These picks are based on the strength of the coaster on its own, the strength of the theming, and how well the theming works with the coaster. There are several other dark rides and haunted attractions that use horror theming, but this list will only focus on roller coasters with horror theming. So here are the 9 levels of horror-themed roller coasters. We begin with a wooden coaster themed to ghostly horsemen, with the Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. The lore of this coaster involves references to real history. The story is that following the Civil War, a soldier went to California during the gold rush. One day he rode his horse into the mine, never to be seen again. And later a ghost rider could be seen riding his horse across the sky. This led to the mine being abandoned and the mining town becoming a ghost town. The ride itself is similar to the other CCI designed coasters. At over 4,500 feet of track, it's a fairly long ride with a height of 108 feet and a top speed of 56 miles an hour. Its layout is very chaotic, crossing over itself 10 times. It also has 14 airtime moments. With its wild layout and intriguing backstory, it's no wonder this is considered one of the best wooden coasters in the world. Coasters of Level 2 can be found at Holiday World in the Halloween area of the park. The Raven is named for Edgar Allan Poe's chilling poem of the same name. Although the ride itself doesn't have much theming, the CCI wooden coaster makes up for its lack of theming with its setting in the woods. Much of the ride is below the tree line. The ride begins with a drop into a tunnel into Nevermore. Then the rest of the ride is a wild flight through the woods with a swooping turn over Lake Rudolph. Although it's only 2,800 feet long, it still holds its own after 30 years, and its name is a perfect fit for the coaster despite its lack of theming. Next door to the Raven is another horror-themed coaster, themed around Washington Irving's short story The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Instead of being called Race Through Sleepy Hollow or The Headless Horseman, it's simply called The Legend. It only uses minimal theming, but the sound effects throughout the ride do a great job of building a spooky atmosphere. As the train leaves the station, the ominous sound of an iron bell can be heard before climbing the 113-foot lift hill. Then, before taking the curved drop into a tunnel, the sound of a howling wolf is heard. The ride reaches a top speed of 59 miles an hour and is over 4,000 feet long. The layout features several curves that toss riders from side to side at a rapid pace, which gives the feeling of being chased by the Headless Horseman. The enclosed helices at the end intensify this feeling as you're pressed to the side of your seat through the tunnels. The ride has a great layout which is supported by the theme. Together, the Raven and Legend are a pair of classic wooden coasters themed around some classic horror stories. Kings Island's Banshee is a roller coaster themed to a ghostly apparition. In Irish folklore, a banshee is the spirit of a woman who appears to warn of the death of a family member, usually heard screaming or shrieking. The coaster is true to the legend, as the scream of the banshee can be heard as the train enters the drop. The coaster holds records for inverted coasters, being the longest inverted coaster at 4,124 feet, and tied for the most inversions on an inverted coaster with 7. After screaming down the 150-foot drop, the rest of the ride is relentless, speeding up as it goes. and reaching a top speed of 67 miles per hour at the bottom of the pretzel knot midway through the ride. Although the ride itself is superb, it has a unique history as it is built on a roller coaster graveyard. Son of Beast was the world's tallest, fastest, longest, and only inverting wooden coaster that operated on the same plot as Banshee from 2000 to 2009. After numerous issues, it was demolished to make way for Banshee. However, in the queue for Banshee, there are gravestones to memorialize Son of Beast and several other defunct roller coasters of Kings Island, paying homage to the history of the park. This is an unusual attraction that is themed around the European Christmas tradition of Krampus. According to legend, Krampus was a spirit that accompanied Saint Nicholas, but punished bad children instead of giving good children gifts like Saint Nick. There are many interpretations of Krampus in horror, but the attraction gives a more adventurous, family-friendly vibe, themed around hunting the cryptid creature rather than being hunted by it. Located at France's Neglo Land, this is unusual for being a water coaster and gives a Christmas vibe with rockworks and sound of cold winter wind. After climbing the 92-foot lift hill, the ride vehicle spirals through a downward helix and into a tunnel, then over an airtime hill before plunging into the splashdown. Then the flume section takes the vehicle back to the station. Although the ride layout is very basic, the water coaster model is unique, and the pairing with the Krampus theme is a very unique horror theme for a coaster. There are many coasters around the world named after the legendary werewolf. Some of them use the French name for werewolves, Rougarou, which is the name of Cedar Point's floorless coaster. Wallaby Belgium's wooden coaster Loup Garou uses a variation of the French name. These roller coasters don't have much in the way of theming other than their names. However, Curse of the Werewolf at Epic Universe is a rare mock-launch spinning coaster and has more elaborate theming than the others. It is loosely themed to the 1941 Universal film Wolfman, and although props and animatronics are used sparsely, the gypsy tent theming in the queue and the onboard audio create a mysterious atmosphere. The Wolfman animatronic is seen briefly, but is hard to spot on the ride. The ride itself has many forward and backward launches and spins frequently, although it's more family-friendly than other mock extreme spinners. Overall, it has better theming than most roller coasters and delivers a unique but not overly intense ride experience. Alton Towers The Smiler is a psychological thriller of a coaster that attempts to force riders into constantly smiling with its insane 14 inversions, a world record. The coaster opened in 2013, and since then no other coaster has come close to beating the inversion record. The ride layout is a twisted mess of track that is centered around a spider-like machine that is supposed to force its victims into happiness. The station building looks like a sort of insane asylum, and there are screens in the queue displaying people with creepy forced grins spread across their faces. Then the ride squeezes in an inversion every chance it gets, with a heartline roll right after the station before even reaching the lift hill. As you travel through the layout, visuals of spirals are placed all around to produce a dizzying sensation. After being turned upside down 7 times, you may think the ride is over, but then there is another lift hill which gives you enough kinetic energy to complete 7 more inversions. When all is said and done, the smiler will leave you smiling on the outside, whether you're screaming in agony or laughing with joy on the inside. We come to another coaster theme to a ghost type with Poltergeist, a Premier Rides launch coaster at Fiesta, Texas. In German ghost lore, a poltergeist is a spirit known for making noisy disturbances such as loud noises, pinching or hitting people, and levitating or throwing objects. This is fitting for a launch coaster that throws riders out of the station, accelerating from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds. This ride has a similar layout to the other premier launch coasters like Flight of Fear or Joker's Jinx. After the launch, the coaster traverses a twisted spaghetti bowl layout with 4 inversions and several crossovers. Poltergeist has different theming than any of the other premier launch coasters, and is arguably more elaborately themed. The queue for the ride starts in a cemetery complete with headstones, crypts, and creepy statues. Then the station itself is inside of a haunted house, which is terrorized by the said poltergeist. The ride is often praised for having such elaborate theming for a Six Flags park, which makes the cloned ride a unique experience compared to the others. Another highly themed launch coaster, Revenge of the Mummy, can be found at 3 Universal parks around the world: Florida, Hollywood, and Singapore. The 3 versions have slightly different layouts and effects throughout the ride, but all have similar signature elements and scenes. The ride is based on the Mummy film franchise from 1999 and is a highly immersive experience as soon as you walk through the door of the museum, which is the show building. After walking through halls that appear to be an ancient pyramid and passing other ancient Egyptian artifacts, you board the train and enter the tomb of Imhotep as the cursed mummy attempts to terrorize the riders. After cursed mummy soldiers appear with a flash of pyro effects, you travel into a room full of scarab beetles, then are launched backwards into a turntable which rotates 180 degrees before launching you forwards up an incline into the main layout. You travel into a brake run with more pyro effects before being launched a final time into a dark section with ambushing mummies and Egyptian symbols before returning to the station. Being at a Universal park, the ride makes great use of its visual effects and cinematic music score. The ride was marketed as the first psychological thrill ride when it was introduced in 2004, and to this day, it uses horror theming to great effect on a roller coaster. This is perhaps the most extreme coaster in terms of horror theming. Located at Italy's Cinecittà World, Inferno is themed to the first part of Italian poet Dante's epic poem trilogy of the same name. The poem Inferno describes a man's journey through the 9 circles of hell, representing the recognition and rejection of sin and turn towards God. The ride itself is indoors and travels through many dark sections. The ride begins by traveling past disturbing scenes from the underworld in a classical painting style before traveling up the lift hill. Then riders face the devil himself before a vertical drop track plunges them into the depths, before being launched into the rest of the layout. The ride features a twisted layout in the dark through several more curves and dips, has unique visuals and more of a classical art style than the theming in many other parks. Cinecittà World may have taken the theming too far, creating a terrifying ride experience, but the artistry and level of detail in the ride experience is above and beyond any other coaster out there. Those were the 9 levels of horror-themed coasters around the world. If you made it to the end, let me know in the comments which one scares you the most, or if there are any levels you would add. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next voyage.